Hi everyone, summer's here and that means it's time to work on tropical bonsai. With me today is a rather impressive bougainvillea that we collected about 2 years ago. This tree originated as part of a hedge that was growing along the edge of someone's property, and the original owner had chainsawed the trees down to just above ground level, which explains the presence of this large cut that you can see here. And our bonsai club offered to remove the stumps for him, which he was happy to have done for free just to get rid of them. I acquired roughly 6 or 7 trees, and this is the first of these that you're going to see being worked on, and then we'll work on the others in later subsequent videos. But let's go around and see what we have here. Originally this was growing at a somewhat higher angle, and this root was deeper under the ground, but this was the only pot that I had to put it in, so we potted it on a slant, and it actually turns out to work pretty well. The other advantage of that is we actually gained some height. The original ground level was farther up here, and by lowering the soil level on the tree we got something that now has a chance of actually looking like a real tree. Now today all we're going to do is prune it a little bit and then try to get it into this beautiful bluish green glazed bonsai pot that we bought for it. This was a recent find at one of our club bonsai shows, and this is a very nice pot, but there is a serious question of whether we're going to be able to get the tree into this pot with all these roots. But we can only try and see what happens. So let's get started by taking this over to the garden wagon, seeing if we can get it out, and then work on trying to reduce the root mass to the point where it will fit in a bonsai pot. The tree was not tied or wired into this pot, and as far as I know there's no drainage screens other than what was created when the pot was molded, so it should lift out. So let's just work on it a little here and see if we can... Yep, that's got it. Okay, now that we have the tree out, we can take a look at the roots. We want to just do a little bit of preliminary work and see how deep it is. And it turns out there's nothing going really deep here, which is nice, because we're going to have to reduce the depth here down to about here to get this to sit in the bonsai pot. So I'm just going to go around here and kind of reconnoiter things, and then go look for some tools in a minute or two. Obviously the new bonsai pot is a good bit shallower than the training pot was, so our work on the roots is focused on making the root mass shallower so that it will conform to the pot. And this means we have to reduce some cut-off stubs of some tap roots, because when bougainvilleas grow in the ground, they typically send out a ring of horizontal tap roots around a central mass of wood called a bole. That's spelled B-O-L-E. And when you dig one out, you typically end up taking off all these radial tap roots and then getting it to grow fine roots around the base. There's one other massive root right in here that is of concern to me, because it's going to sit on this on the bottom of the pot. So I got to try to get as much of this down as I can. And this is really hard work here because this is a massive tree and I don't have much purchase to get leverage here. So let's see if we can get the last of that off of there. This isn't going to hurt the tree. It's getting nutrition off the fine roots, not these big thick ones. So as long as we don't cut a connection with a lot of fine ones, taking off this big thick one isn't going to be too much of a problem. Okay, now that one looks dead there, but yeah, that's a dead one there. So that's not a problem. And now we'll just take some more of the old garden soil out from underneath. Now we're going to have to be careful when we pot it in to fill that void in with soil, because if you get an air pocket, you get ants and earwigs and all manner of undesirable creepy crawlies in there. And at some point I'm going to have to moisturize these roots too. Even though we're in the shade, because it's such a warm day, this soil is drying out pretty quickly. Now we'll just reduce the fine stuff here. Now this is a purple bougainvillea, and the roots are fairly strong. They're not crumbly and brittle like on some other varieties of bougainvillea. So this we can treat it pretty much like anything else we use for bonsai. We'll water the roots here a little bit just to keep our tree happy and moist. And we tried it in the pot earlier, and it fits surprisingly well. I'm not going to have to take off any of this long root over here on my right side, and I'm thankful for that, because that's a big part of this tree's charm, is this being a slant style tree with a heavy counterbalancing root structure. So we're just going to kind of trim the fine roots here around the edges. That's left over from in the ground when we collected it. We're getting very close to being able to put it in the new pot now. I'm just going to be very careful here with it. We've gotten this far. We don't want to injure the tree. Our bougainvillea should be ready for the bonsai pot now, so I'm going to pick it up and carry it over and settle it in and see what kind of fit we have. Okay, it is on the bottom, and the soil level is pretty good in most places, so I think we can settle it in there now. Now you'll note there's some fine wires coming up from the pot. I did decide to wire this in because it's a pretty massive tree and a pretty shallow pot. I'm not so much worried about wind as I am about the local cat population, so we'll just hide the wire around the back here, and hopefully at some point when it has enough root structure I can take this off, because there really is no way to get it out of there. Oh, we have a little visitor here. Get a tweezers. This guy needs to go somewhere else. That's a slug, and I don't like these guys very much because they eat the moss. So we'll just toss that in the bin there, and he'll get recycled back into the garden. Okay, so there really isn't any better way to deal with this wire unless I can go under the root here, and that might actually be possible. Let's see if I have a poking tool or a digging tool. Oh, here we are. Okay, we're most of the way through there. We're on the other side. Just go down into this stuff here. Yep, there's the tip of our tool. So let's see if we can thread the wire through there and hide it. That way, if the wire is still on here next year and I want to show this tree, we don't have a problem. This is the repotted tree. Now that it's in, we need to do a little bit of work on the foliage. Now, although the usual bonsai technique is to prune and wire a tree before you repot it, I didn't really want to do that with this one because I knew there was going to be a dramatic change in the pot size, and I wanted to establish the branch proportions once I got the tree settled into the pot. So now that we have it in place here, we'll work on cutting it back a little bit and see what we can do with with what we have here. And I'm just going to look it over first and kind of figure out where we're going with it, and then go from there. We're getting close to finishing pruning this tree and working on initial styling now. I did most of the work off camera simply because it took me a long time to look through this jumbled mass of branches and kind of figure out where I wanted to go with it. And you'll notice since we've thinned it out, the chainsaw cut that the homeowner did is far more noticeable. And at some point we're going to take the Dremel tool and grind this out to make it look far more natural. But that'll take place at another time because the tree's been through enough trauma for today. So anyway, now that we have it potted in and pruned, we have to give it its first watering in the new pot. But before we do that, let's talk about the wiring on it. I did put one wire on, and I wired 2 branches here. And you'll notice this one's wired somewhat loosely, and that's intentional. The bark on these things skins very easily, so you have to be very careful when applying the wire. And it's always better to go gently than it is to force the issue. In addition, when these things grow here in California, they can put on a lot of growth in a very short time because when we get the summer's heat, they tend to have a fairly short growing season. It's only 8 or 9 weeks, and then they shut down in the fall. So what we'll do now that we have this on is keep a careful eye on this wire, see if there's further growth and further branch thickening. And when we take it off, instead of unwinding it, we're going to cut it so as not to injure the Bougainvillea's branches. So let's take it over now and put some water in it, and then we'll do a 360 on the turntable and show you what it looks like. Okay, so we'll just give it a shower here till we see the soil residue or clean water running out the bottom of the pot. We're going to lose just a little bit of soil off the top of the pot because I've got some organics in here, because this is a broadleaf tropical and it's going to burn a lot of nutrients as it gets through the growing season. Okay, I think we got water running out the bottom of the pot now, so we're good on the watering. So here it is, a beautiful slant-style Bougainvillea bonsai in the making. Now we'll finish with our usual slow 360 to show you the tree from all sides. Thank you for watching, folks.